discussion you get into about the euro, the smartest thing to do, whatever anyone says to you about the euro, is simply to reply, no, it's much more complicated than that. That way, you appear more intelligent and therefore win. It's genius, because the thing with the euro, right, is there is a temptation, a pretty solid temptation with the euro crisis to explain it all in terms of crude national stereotypes. There is a tendency to do that, right? But it's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated than the idea that the Germans, oh, look, over there, the Germans, it's much more complicated, the idea that the Germans want to rule the world, right? And in order to do that, they make stuff people actually like and then sell it very successfully, right? No, it's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated the fact that the French only really want to work till they're 52, only really want to work till Thursday lunchtime and expect the rest of us to fucking pay for it. No, it's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated than the fact that Italy is basically one giant money laundering scheme. It's much more complicated. It's much more complicated than the fact that half of Spain is asleep and the other half hasn't got a fucking job. It's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated than the fact that Ireland is Ireland. It's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated than the fact that Polish people want to work. They want to work, they work hard, they do a good job, and they make the rest of us look like a bunch of slack, feckless wankers with a thumb up our arse who've forgotten the meaning of graft. No, it's much more complicated than that. Much more. It's much more complicated than that Greek bloke. You remember, you went on holiday, that Greek bloke who drove you from the airport to your villa, yeah, and he was only 3/4 of a mile, and he charged you 85 fucking euro. And that evening when he brought you your tea, he had his thumb in the hummus and tried to have sex with your daughter. No, it's much more complicated than that.